Europe is furious, and not in the polite, strongly worded letter kind of way. Fan organizations across the continent have taken FIFA to the European Commission, the actual regulatory body of the European Union, and filed a formal legal complaint. Not a petition, not a hashtag, a legal complaint. And the reason they did it will make your stomach turn, because it has nothing to do with the football and everything to do with what FIFA has turned this tournament into. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never look at the 2026 World Cup the same way again. This isn't a story about one country or one fan base being priced out. This is a story about a governing body that has decided, in plain sight, that the World Cup no longer belongs to the people who built it, the supporters, the traveling faithful, the ones who saved for years, who booked holidays around fixture lists, who passed the love of this tournament down through generations. Those people are being told one by one, in the most clinical language possible, that there is no longer a seat at the table for them. Or rather, there is a seat. It just costs more than your mortgage. And what you're about to hear is not just about 2026. This is the template for every World Cup that comes after it, which is why you need to understand exactly what is being done and exactly who is doing it. Let's start with the complaint itself, because this is where it gets real. Football supporters, Europe and the Consumer Rights Organization, Euroconsumers sat down and put together an 18-page document, 18 pages, detailing how FIFA has, in their words, abused its monopoly position over ticket sales. They filed it with the European Commission in Brussels and asked for immediate interim measures before the tournament even begins. Their argument is brutally simple. FIFA is the only place you can buy an official ticket to the World Cup. There is no competitor. There is no alternative. It is a monopoly. They claim FIFA has used that monopoly to impose conditions on fans that would never survive in a competitive market. The Football Supporters Association in England called the prices, and I want you to feel this phrase, a laughable insult to fans, not overpriced. Not disappointing. A laughable insult. That is the language of people who have genuinely lost faith. And when you look at the numbers being reported, and these are numbers being widely discussed by fan groups and reported across major outlets, you start to understand why. The cheapest tickets for the final at MetLife Stadium are being reported at over $4,000. $4,000 for the cheapest seat at the most important football match on the planet. Compare that to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, where the cheapest final ticket was a fraction of that price. We are talking about a jump that, by any reasonable measure, is staggering. Premium seats for the final have been reported at close to $16,000. $16,000 for one match. And here's the part that FIFA will never say out loud. Those prices did not happen by accident. They are the result of a deliberate choice. A system called dynamic pricing, which FIFA has rolled out for the first time at a World Cup on this scale, means that the price you see today is not the price you'll see tomorrow. Like an airline ticket, the cost rises with demand. And for a tournament this size, with this much global appetite, demand is always going up. So every time a fan hesitates, every time someone checks their bank account and thinks maybe tomorrow, the price moves further out of reach. But here is where it stops being about money and starts being about something uglier. FIFA did acknowledge the criticism, they heard the noise, and their response was to release a limited batch of what were described as lower-priced tickets, roughly £45 worth, for each of the 104 matches. Sounds generous, right? FSE says those tickets were gone before general sale even began, before the average fan had a chance. They were calling it bait advertising, dangling an affordable option that almost nobody could actually access, so that FIFA could point to it and say they tried. And then, when the cheap seats vanished in minutes, the dashboard filled back up with the only tickets left, the ones that cost more than a family holiday. FIFA's official response to all of this was to say that, as a not-for-profit organization, the revenue generated from the World Cup is reinvested into the game globally. And maybe that is true. But when the former chair of FIFA's own governance committee is publicly saying that profits are being prioritized over fans, you have to ask what kind of not-for-profit operates like this. This is the moment. This is what you need to hold on to. Because here's the thing that nobody is saying loudly enough. The complaint from European fans is not just about ticket prices. It is about what happens when the fans stay home. Because they are staying home. Right now, with the tournament already underway, the data coming out of host cities tells a story that FIFA does not want told. Hotels in cities across the United States that were projected to be packed months ago are running significantly below expectations. Industry surveys report that a majority of hotel owners and operators are pointing to visa barriers and geopolitical concerns as significantly suppressing international demand. One city official acknowledged that hotel demand was slower than expected, and that fans from around the world were simply not coming in the numbers anyone projected. Reports suggest one host city alone expects to miss out on over $100 million in anticipated room revenue. $100 million. Gone. Not because people don't love football, because they looked at the total cost of this trip. The ticket, the flight, the hotel, the exchange rate, the visa process, and they did the maths. And the maths didn't work. But if you think that's where it ends, you do not know FIFA. Because the visa situation is its own catastrophe entirely, and it sits underneath the ticketing scandal like a second fault line waiting to give. The U.S. State Department froze visa applications from 75 countries as part of a broader review of screening procedures. 75 countries. Some of those countries have qualified for this tournament. Some of their fans have been waiting months for visas that have not arrived. There are reports of previously approved travel authorizations being revoked. Reports of fans facing visa bond requirements of $15,000 just to enter the United States. There are entire fan bases. Morocco, whose supporters were one of the stories of 2022, Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia, facing uncertainty about whether their people can even get in. Iranian fans, whose team somehow navigated the political chaos to qualify, were told their supporters could not attend matches in the United States at all. The team was required to stay in Mexico. Some administrative staff reportedly didn't have visas as the tournament began. And what did FIFA say? FIFA's president assured the world that the world is welcome in America. That was the response. A slogan. While real fans, people who had followed their national teams for decades, watched their dreams of attending a World Cup dissolve in paperwork and geopolitical theater. Football supporters. Europe's executive director put it as plainly as anyone could. He called it a perfect storm. The ticket prices, the domestic political situation, the impossibility of entry for some nations. And he said something that should haunt everyone who runs this sport. There are people who simply cannot afford the tickets, and others who, for ethical reasons, do not want to travel to the United States right now. England's official LGBTQ+ supporters group announced they would not be traveling to the U.S. in an organized capacity, citing serious concerns about safety and security for people from vulnerable groups. Let that sit for a second. An official supporters group of one of the most historic footballing nations on earth decided that attending their country's matches at a World Cup was not safe enough to organize at a World Cup in 2026. And the 48-team format hangs over all of this too. FIFA expanded the tournament from 32 teams to 48, the first time this has happened, and the criticism from the moment it was announced was consistent. Diluted competition, more dead rubber group games, a bloated structure that serves the commercial goal of more broadcast slots and more sponsorship packages, rather than the sporting goal of the best possible football. Critics called it a money grab from the beginning, a power grab. And now here we are with the largest tournament in history, spread across 3 countries, 16 cities, a logistical operation of extraordinary complexity. And instead of the wave of global celebration that FIFA promised, what we have is a formal legal complaint from European fan bodies, hotels below capacity, visa nightmares, record ticket prices, and the slow, grinding realization that the people who were supposed to benefit from football getting bigger are the same people being squeezed out of it. Think about what this costs at the human level. Think about the dad in Manchester or Madrid or Milan who has watched every World Cup since he was a child and told his kids stories about it, who earmarked money for this tournament years ago, who genuinely thought that a World Cup in North America meant accessibility, meant English-speaking countries, meant somewhere familiar and easy to reach, and then watched the ticket prices load on his screen and understood that this tournament, his tournament, the one he grew up loving, was not made for him anymore. Think about the Argentine supporter, or the Senegalese supporter, or the Moroccan supporter who planned and saved and applied for a visa and got a delay, or a denial or a bond requirement that made the whole thing impossible. These are not abstract statistics. These are the people football was built by. These are the people in the stands at 3 a.m, in driving rain, singing when their team was losing. FIFA knows their names. FIFA used their passion for decades to build the product it now sells at $16,000 a seat. And this is never going to get better on its own. Because the model works for FIFA. The revenue numbers will still be record-breaking. The broadcast deals will still be signed. The sponsors will still show up. The fact that a fan in Birmingham or Barcelona can't get in doesn't register on a balance sheet. The fact that the atmosphere inside those venues may feel different, quieter, more corporate, less raw, that doesn't show up in the quarterly report either. But you feel it. Anyone who has been to a match where the real supporters are missing feels it immediately. Something is gone. Something that cannot be manufactured or streamed or sold back to you. The soul of it. And FIFA is trading that soul, piece by piece, for a pricing model borrowed from the airline industry and applied to the one thing that was never supposed to be a commodity. This was never about the football. It was never about giving more nations a chance or growing the game in new markets or making history. Those are the words FIFA uses. The actions tell a different story. A story about a governing body that looked at the most beloved sporting event on the planet and asked not how to make it more accessible, but how to extract more value from the demand it already had. And the answer they came up with was charge more, expand more, control more, and trust that the fans will keep coming no matter what. Europe's fan groups just told them that trust is broken. They didn't tweet about it. They filed 18 pages with the European Commission. That is not frustration, that is a reckoning. The question now is whether anyone in power is actually listening, or whether this ends the way it always ends, with FIFA taking the money and promising to do better next time, while the next World Cup contract is already being signed somewhere behind closed doors. Tell me in the comments, are you still going, or has all of this put you off entirely? And if you want to keep following this story as it develops, subscribe, because this is far from over.